Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitt. We have an excellent guest today. I'd like to say we're digging into the Clark Alumni Network. After many painful years of having Springfield guests, we finally have our second ever Clark alum on. Yes. Woo-Town represent. It is Dan Rosenak, the owner of Flow State Yoga Therapy. Dan, what's going on, man?
Thanks for the opportunity, Kyle. It's great to be here. Looking forward.
Let's kind of start from the beginning with your background in lacrosse, where you started playing and how you got a love for it, and then kind of transition into other things you've done with your career.
Yeah. I was an athletic kid. I was playing a lot of different sports growing up, and none of them were lacrosse until my junior year. My gym class was doing the presidential physical fitness testing, and my gym teacher was the head lacrosse coach, Chris Johnson, at Montclair High School in New Jersey. Where I grew up, and basically he said, "Hey, you're pretty athletic. You should play lacrosse." And I just said, "Yeah, I'll do that." So I was playing soccer and wrestling in high school, and I actually played baseball my first year of high school. That was my spring sport as a kid. But I stopped playing baseball after that freshman season because I was bored, frankly. I wanted to be more physical. I wanted to just use my athleticism and challenge my body more. So I think wrestling was kind of my entry point for lacrosse, actually. I had a teammate on the wrestling team who was an attackman. He ended up playing at Haverford. He was actually a year younger, but he kind of encouraged me early on, and he was my training partner. So I was learning the game. I started as a defender with a long stick. I would do one-on-ones with him outside of practice in the off season, constantly. We'd meet up multiple times a week, and we train together. I would really work on my angles and playing the ball carrier. And we just pushed each other, and I was able to become a starter in my senior year, and had some success, but I still didn't know what I was doing. I was just chasing ground balls and trying to play good angles on attackmen. Ended up I had no recruiting package. I was not playing club lacrosse. That wasn't really as popular as it is now. I graduated high school in 2004. So I had academic interest in Clark, and I ended up talking to Coach Evan Davis, who was taking over the program at that point, and he said, "We'd love to have you." It seemed like just kind of a good match for a lot of reasons, and I was able to get some financial support, which really helped my family. And I felt like it was a school I could see some playing time and make a difference at.
And I think one of the things that, just for everyone else to get background, I knew about Rosenak because my brother's best friend growing up, I helped get him into Clark. No, he wasn't really getting recruited. He didn't play club either. His name was Mike Fuchs, a good friend of ours still. My brother played at NEC. They're kind of similar age to them. Was Fuchs in your class or one
He
year?
was.
Yeah, he was in your class. So he came in and he's like, "Hey, he was having a tough fall ball, and he was like, there's this kid. I don't know if you've heard of him. This kid, Rosie. He is insane. He's so fast." And there was enough overlap where I graduated in 2003. There were still people on the team, obviously, that you played with that I played with, which is super weird to me. I still feel very old talking about it. But I would come back for alumni stuff, and they would be like, "Yeah." And I remember the alumni game. They used to have it in the fall. I went into the alumni game. I'm playing. I'm good shape. I'm still playing, so I'm like feeling pretty good. It was like had to be like 2004, 2005. And I'm playing attack because I'm like, no, I'm the statesman. You must sit. And I remember getting the ball, and then you ran right at me. And I went, that guy is too fast. And I passed it immediately, immediately through X. I was like, absolutely not. No. And everyone's like, hey, Kyle's passing the ball a lot. That's kind of weird. I'm like, yeah, can you switch me off this dude? So I'm like talking to guys like, come give me a pick. Come give me a pick. Like, let's do this. But that's how I remember you. And then talking to Fuchs about you too is, you're very, I think you're very modest about your athletic ability. It's very, I think, high level. I really think you could have played at a much higher level school. Not that Clark is bad. I love Clark. Everyone knows that. But your closeout ability and footwork was insane for someone that's only been playing for a couple years. And before, prior to that, your story is actually kind of my story. That except I transferred into Clark, where I didn't start early enough. But I started the same time you did, and I was a defenseman first, and then I became an attackman. And you are probably still hold a ton of records at Clark. No, like you played and started for 4 years.
I didn't miss a game. I was really lucky.
Yeah,
Saved some penalties here and there, but I didn't get injured. I was very fortunate to be able to play my first season and just improve my game um, year to year. I was really blessed to have that opportunity.
yeah, and I think too, like a lot of that is made in the weight room and doing it on your own, right? Because even back then we had weight room, we had that stuff. Well, you had to do it yourself, right? And that's kind of where I made, fixed my body from all my injuries because I had a ton of injuries. I still have a ton of injuries. I still play. Well, hopefully soon. We're almost there. I did a test yesterday for my ACL. I got 85% at everyone except my lateral leap, which was 50%, which stinks. So we're working on that. But they would tell, like, again, I have firsthand knowledge of you secondhand because my brother's best friend played with you and you were at the school that I was an alumnus of and still knew a lot of people. So they were just like, dude, this kid's an animal in the weight room. Like, I thought I was strong. He's squatting so much weight. Like, they're like, he's breaking records because there was a separate weight room underneath that you guys worked out into. And it's wild because, like, the way that things connect is we never got to play together really, unless we did an alumni game together, which I'm sure we did at some point. But the way that personalities connect as well, from being like, I mean, again, I'm sure you can tell you're watching this podcast. I'm a pretty demonstrable personality. It's not great. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better at it. But like, you were much more like quiet and unassuming as a leader and vocal when you needed to be, right? There was other guys in your team that were loud, and that could be that guy. But I think you were more of a set an example guy. And I think it's interesting because your career path to this point kind of led you into that mindset, helping you set up the business you have now. But before we get into that, I want to talk about you lived in Hawaii, and everyone that's listening to this in the Northeast, which is most of our listeners, this man lived in Hawaii. Don't hold it against him. It's not his fault. Like, he's wearing a Hawaii lacrosse shirt because he played there and he helped his career there. Tell me how you went from Clark to Hawaii and who you were working for.
Yeah. Um, Again, it was a lot of good fortune. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was graduating. I majored in economics, and I think I was close to a minor in entrepreneurship. It was a new program at the time, but I don't think I officially did it. Anyway, I had a couple opportunities in some business um, type environments, but I was excited about a sales and marketing development program with Black and Decker, the power tool manufacturer. So I interviewed during my senior spring, and basically I was offered a job, but I didn't know where. So I went home after graduation um, to my hometown, Montclair, And there's basically a month of time to just kind of, reset. And I was actually helping my mom sell her house. She was moving, kind of downsizing. So I was doing that. And then I was offered a placement in San Diego with Black and Decker. And I still, like, honestly didn't really know what I was getting into, but I knew I wanted to challenge myself in a new way. Um, and working for a big corporation at the time felt like it would do that for me. And I wanted to see new things and meet new people. So um, I said, yeah, just like, let's go. So next thing I knew, I was, kind of flying out to the West Coast and moving and getting set up. And luckily, my older half brother was still in San Diego at the time with the Navy, and I was able to live with him and kind of reconnect that family tie, which was cool. And a year and a half later, after just working basically in a sales and marketing territory manager role, I was offered a transfer to Honolulu. Um, and I don't know how much we want to talk about work, but I basically I did that um, similar job in Hawaii as I did in San Diego, and I guess I was doing something well, but I ended up staying there for 6.5 years, taking several other roles with the company. So I stayed in field sales the whole time. I never really had like an office job, although I was offered a position with the company to move back east to the headquarters and do something in product development in Baltimore. Um, and I knew that wasn't for me. I just like I almost took the opportunity, but I pulled back and declined it and chose to stay a little bit longer in Hawaii and ended up meeting my wife there. Hawaii was a great experience. I played club lacrosse almost every weekend with the guys in Kapolei Park. Um, I didn't realize how tight of a group existed out there until I moved there. In San Diego, I was coaching as an assistant at San Diego State. I was playing club ball for a post-college team, great guys, San Diego club. Um, that was really fun, and I knew I wanted to keep playing. I actually like thought about like, oh, I wonder if I could play, in the in the pros at a higher level. It never really worked out for me. But I was also kind of focusing on my work, and Hawaii happened quickly. So um, yeah, playing club lacrosse out there. I took up surfing in California, so I was able to keep doing that in Hawaii a lot more. And I was coaching youth in high school in Hawaii too. So I was able to like really keep the game um, as a big part of my life, not just playing, but also coaching and helping to grow the really like grassroots volunteer led youth league in the Honolulu area. So that was a lot of fun and very rewarding. And I stayed there from 2010. I moved out to Hawaii just after the Super Bowl in 2010, and I met my wife at a friend's wedding in California, and she lived in Hawaii with me for a bit. And then we moved back east and got married in 2016,
Yeah.
the end of 2016.
I think
Yeah.
what's really interesting about that is that's a story that a lot of people that played Division III lacrosse have. But the thing that's different is that you kept playing and you kept being involved. And, I say this all the time. There's 400 Division III schools, Division III programs, right? Give or take. Let's say there's 400. Of those 400 teams, the biggest ones are 60 and the smallest ones are probably 25. So again, I'm not good at math, but that's a lot of people. And I would think that, let's just say if half those people went back into coaching or youth or anything like that, or reffing, and stayed involved with the sport would be even bigger than it is. And I'm always curious why people don't do that. But I feel like I have the opportunity to ask you why you did that. You picked up another hobby. Most people like do try it for a couple more years. They get hurt or whatever, and then they go on to something else. You actually picked something else up in surfing and kept lacrosse with you. Why do you think you did that?
I loved playing so much. I still do. It was it was not just enjoyment, but also deep social connection. I found family connection through the sport, both in California and Hawaii. Um, some of my best friends continue to be guys that I played with in both of those places. Um, and I think it was also a lot of fun because I felt myself improving my game. I wasn't like I knew I wasn't done. I still feel like I have more to learn and grow as an athlete, but I definitely at that time I had a lot of gas in the tank and I wasn't ready to let that pursuit go. It was a really big part of my life.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like, and even Clark is small. Clark is the alumni base is fun. They're great. No shots. But I think that the lacrosse side of it is dominated by like a couple people and a couple different professions, and a lot of it is, in like sales. When you were like, I went into sales, I'm like, oh, I'm not surprised, but at all, not because of your personality, but because of where you went to school and the available opportunities at that point in time, and then moving forward. And the fact that you went an entrepreneurial route is super interesting to me. I'm I kind of do that now, not really. I was a freelancer for a long time, and I was a coach for a long time, and I didn't make a ton of money doing that, but I loved it and I kept doing it. And everyone's like, "Why are you doing this? Like, go get a job." Go get a job. You had the job and you kept going with it. That's how most people do it. I flipped that and was like, no, I will live poorly to do the thing that I love to do. And it's always interesting to see like the other side of that. I had a really good friend, sorry for tangenting. I had a really good friend that worked in for one of the companies, lacrosse companies, and he was a rep, and he called me one day. He's like, "Hey man, I just want you to know, like, I'm leaving this company. I'm not gonna say who it was." And I was like, "Oh, really? Why?" He's like, "Dude, I love it there, but like, I'm not gonna do anything else. There's nowhere else to go. And there's like a glass ceiling. I can look up, but I can't ever go up, right?" And that's kind of the sad thing about this industry, that actually has led to innovation, right? And that's kind of where you're going next, is kind of where like I'm thinking about, like, I can't, can I do this for 20 more years? I don't know. Like, I hope so, but I really love coaching and I love writing, and somehow they keep flipping back and forth with each other with importance. But you found a way to make that into a business when you moved back to Philadelphia. So kind of talk me through how that started, and the steps to right now where you're at.
Yeah. So moving back to Philadelphia was interesting. It was the city that my wife grew up near, and it was not my home metropolitan area, and being New York. I really didn't know much about Philadelphia, but it was close enough to my wife's family and my own. Um, so that's really why we came here. I was still playing lacrosse when I moved back to Philadelphia. Uh, I actually I resigned. I left Black and Decker. At the time, it was Stanley Black and Decker. The companies merged while in Hawaii, and I thought I want to coach at a higher level. I was just feeling the desire to grow as a coach. While in Hawaii, I was coming back. I was flying back east and going to the lacrosse conventions, to represent the the U.S. Lacrosse chapter in Hawaii and things like that. And I was getting, just attending coaching seminar, and I was just hungry to learn and keep developing as a coach. So I thought, okay, we'll make this move, we'll transition to the East Coast. I'll find a coaching opportunity, and I'll find a way to keep playing. So I did that. I started as an assistant coach at Haverford College. I had a couple connections to the head coach there at the time, Brendan Dawson. He's now the boys high school coach at the Haverford School. Um, and I was able to jump right in and help with recruiting, help with position specific skills and practice. And um, I was doing my master's at Temple University on the side at the time. So that was kind of my new life, like student, assistant coach. And I think I was playing in the Philly box league in Rizzo Rink underneath the 95. I don't know if you've ever been there, but
I
it's
have. I played in it.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've been there for sure.
Yeah.
So I was doing that and playing, playing when I could, but um, yeah, that was the first step. The second step was we knew we were having our first son. So my wife was pregnant, we were expecting a baby, and I saw the writing on the wall with college coaching early enough to pull out and say, look,
Lucky you. I
well,
didn't.
it, it was super fun. I loved, lifting with the guys and being around the school, the college environment. It was great. But I could tell, okay, like this isn't gonna work. Like, my wife's career, becoming parents, is not conducive to spending just lots of time at recruiting tournaments all summer and traveling and fighting for that next gig wherever it is. Like it just I knew it wasn't going to work for me. So um, I left Haverford on good terms, in fall ball the next year, and started to focus more on my master's program at Temple. Um, and again, I was still playing, but I started thinking about how can I make this transition from coaching to education and do something in that space. So I had a connection to Joel Sensor, who's one of um, the guys that started Harlem Lacrosse in New York, and um, I talked to him about exploring opportunities there, and it turned out that there was actually a new boys middle school program in Philadelphia. So I started volunteering with them, just going to help out at practice, getting to know the kids, and in time, I ended up interviewing for that program director role when the first program director, I think he went back to pursue a PhD. So that was like a great fit for me because it was coaching and it was education, which I studied in my grad program. And it was sports-based youth development and addressing like major disparities in education and um, our society as a whole. So I was super excited to be able to do that. And I think it was really like it was the best work for me at that time. Um, I was able to just connect with kids early on, like sixth, seventh, and eighth grade boys who are learning the game, and they're super excited about just seeing themselves get better at something, right? Like some of the kids played other sports, but most didn't have access to that, right? Like there's just like major, obviously, inequality that Harlem Lacrosse is addressing with this intervention, sports in under-resourced schools. So um, I I loved that work. I was doing a lot of really cool things with the kids, just seeing them grow as lacrosse players, as students, as people. And I've stayed connected with them and the group. But again, another life transition happened, and expecting a second son led to, okay, like this. and then it was COVID. I think it was during COVID when schools were shut down.
Right.
Everything, all of our work became virtual. So I'm interacting with my students not in person after school, but like online all day and even into the evenings, just trying to keep these kids connected to our program and engaged, and just trying to keep them involved. Meanwhile, I have my own two sons who are 2 and 0 at my feet in the basement, and I just felt like there was a conflict again that I had to make a decision about. My wife's career at the time kind of required her to like lean in and focus more, and we decided that it would be best if I again step back from my work in a full-time capacity, let my wife lean in to her work, and figure out a new way forward for myself. And that's what led to flow state yoga therapy. That was a slow evolution, but those are the major shifts that led to me finding yoga, taking yoga more seriously for myself, my own comprehensive health and balance, and becoming a dad. Like I just subconsciously knew I needed something to find balance and make me live the healthiest life possible so that I could be the kind of father that I wanted to be. That's really what led to yoga.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
Well, I think we talked about this before. You're listening to this. This is a home and home series because Dan has his own podcast coming out, hopefully produced by our very own David Yes. Shout out, Mr. Yes.
Thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome. And when we did our interview, you asked me a lot about kind of like how I got to this place. And I think one of the things that we connected on too was my shift was also COVID. And it was because like, all these positions got reduced and inside lacrosse, like I was kind of not full-time anymore. That happened kind of shortly before all the shifting happened. But like, I remember being like, okay, I'm going to freelance and I'll figure it out. And then like right before COVID went really crazy, I broke up with my girlfriend at that time. And that was like super traumatic. And, and I guess I don't mind talking about this now, but it came up on the podcast with you, so I might as well address it as well. I went to therapy after that, and that really helped me and I think, there's this stigma around it, right? Where, men don't do that, or some societal thing that's not normal to do that. You must be messed up or whatever. Honestly, it's funny now because I kind of felt that way, even though I had gone previously in 2014 as well and 2015, just to get like my head right. My head was not right, making the transition from being a college coach to working inside lacrosse. That was very hard. And then like I feel like every time I have a real crazy shift, like I have to reference the tools and the help that I got when I did that, and not necessarily go back every time. I think people people think it's like, oh, it's a lifetime thing. Your therapist, you become dependent. Some people do, but I think it's actually just a really, valuable tool. And they have it now all the way down to grade school. Like it's not just guidance counselors in school now. Like they have real psychological professionals working in those admin offices that can like talk to kids and talk them through stuff. I think it's so valuable. Like we didn't have that, right? Like I definitely didn't have that at my schools, any of my schools. And I think it's good to talk about too. And I know that's kind of not what you're not doing. You're doing therapy, but it's a lot of yoga based stuff. It's mind body stuff. But the reason I want to talk about it is that it helped me connect those things really well. I was not connecting well. The gyms were closed. So I started running. I started getting injured running because I don't know how to modulate anything. It's kind of my main weakness in life. I'm not really great at downshifting. I go from 1 to 5 in the morning. We're shifting up, and then shifting down is like, all right, you're tired now. Are you tired yet? Are you tired yet? And it's a slow shift down every day for me. And it's probably because I have ADD. But I wanted to talk to you about your I guess, is practice the right word? Should I use that? Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. My practice as a yoga therapist is my business, but my personal practice is my own yoga practice. And they go hand in hand.
How do you make that work for you? What are the benefits that you see of just an average person bringing that into their life and trying to connect like mind and body? Because I've done yoga before. I did it for 6 months straight. I felt a good connection at the end, but I always struggled to get in the right place to use it during the day. Right? I did it for 6 months straight, every single day. And then like I kind of went, well, I did 6 months. Do I need to keep doing? I wasn't feeling what I was supposed. I wasn't elevating is really what it was. Looking back, I wasn't elevating my practice like you're talking about. But how do you get people into a space where you can have the physical and the mental connect in the way that your business is helping people do?
So yoga has a couple great, really brilliant models that I use a lot. One of them is called the koshas model. And koshas is a Sanskrit word which means sheaths of existence or layers. So you could think of it like, those Russian dolls that get progressively tinier as you go in. So you could think of it, these layers as being these dolls that come apart. And if the outer layer is our physical body, right? The next doll layer would be our energetic body. So that would include, breath, our digestion, all of our respiratory organs, all of these systems that regulate our energy, would be that kind of middle layer between the physical layer on the outside, and then the next layer in being the mind or the emotions. And emotions in this context would be just ideas that or feelings that we haven't quite fully processed. We don't fully understand them yet, but they're constantly happening for all of us. We all have movement of thoughts constantly. Period. Everybody does, right? Yoga's goal is not to stop the thinking, but to understand it better. So we have these first three layers, right? Body, energy, and then mind. Inside of that or above that would be intellect or wisdom, which is like higher level consciousness. And that would be the bridge between the emotional mind, the constantly moving mind, and the spirit or the bliss state that is central and not changing. The other layers are constantly changing. Intellect is accumulating. Spirit is just itself. It is as it is. It is constant. in this model. So that's a way I approach things with clients. Like, okay, now we have a framework to understand our human experience. Our belief systems dictate how we process emotions, right? So think of this as the inside out now. Our belief systems, which are conditioned by upbringing, education, family, um, and our spiritual just disposition to begin with, that influences how we process emotions and think, and in turn, how we breathe and our energetic modulation, which regulates or at least affects our physical posture. In yoga
Right.
practice, we work from the outside in. We can work with posture. We can better know our body and figure out what is happening. Like, how do we sit, stand, and move? And how do we breathe while we do? And how do we think? These layers of pattern awareness are the essence of yoga practice. It's a lifestyle science to improve awareness and increase acceptance of who we are and where we are.
So I'm an average person, parent of a kid. I'm listening to this. I'm 40, 45, 50, whatever. Can you give me, I'll ask for three. I'll be greedy. Give me three things that I can do to help the connections between those layers. Like it can be breathing, it can be, a pose, it can be a mind exercise. Any three things in succession that you would recommend to have even a minuscule difference. Cause I know people are probably listening to this and just being like, oh, it's all like the mumbo jumbo or whatever. I gotta tell you, man, like this stuff does work if you believe in it. Like it's not everything is absolute. Things are different for every person, but being able to connect your body to your mind, to your spirit, to how you move, to the things around you, to how you think about things is very important. And we often neglect it until it becomes a huge problem. And then we just have bad personalities. So maybe there's ways that we can kind of connect those things better. Three things that an average person can do to get a little bit more connected to themselves, let's say.
Okay. I'll go in accordance with these kosha layers. So on a physical level, I would encourage everybody to move their spine in every direction at least once a day, but the more the better. Meaning lengthening, forward flexion, extension, lateral flexion, side bending, and twisting, right? We do these things and we're not even aware we're doing them. So having some kind of work break practice, perhaps, where you move your body, right? Or maybe it's when you're waking up, like a cat stretching in the morning upon waking, like move your spine. When you do that, you not only improve your posture and blood flow, but you manipulate the nerves that run through the spine and up from the brain to the rest of the body. So your physical practice is doing a lot of good things for your entire health. So that's one, movement. Secondly, we have to know how we breathe. We have to learn to be better breathers. We all breathe for survival without thinking about it, but we can all breathe better. Even high-level practitioners can become better breathers. So an easy one that I would encourage folks to do is like play with breathing low in the belly area, low back, obliques. Put your hands there and just breathe into those areas of the body. And then try the ribs. explore that rib cage expansion, and then explore upper chest or clavicle area breathing. Those are the three main segments that we can effectively breathe into. Most of us tend to breathe shallow and short, which means we're not using our whole lungs. So getting a little more aware of the breathing process to begin with. And then from there, there's tons of different breathing practices and different techniques that, again, should be tailored to the individual. So I won't go there, but get to know your breathing process and work towards deepening, lengthening, and smoothing out the breathing. So that's two. The third one would be develop a mental clarity practice. If you want to call that mindfulness, if you want to call that meditation, if you want to call it relaxation, time where you intentionally disconnect from electronics, media, and other people, and just let your mental sediment fall to the bottom of the lake, right? We want to have clear mind. Like you have these nice mountain lakes in New England, right? You can see the bottom, but if there's a storm, all the river sediment or the sand or whatever, it's like in the water, it's brown. When we relax and quiet the mind, the sediment drifts to the bottom so we can see our inner being more clearly and be, with ourself, being present. And that's hard. It's hard to
I
do
was
to
going to
do
say,
this.
how do you do that? Because the hamster does not get off the wheel up here.
Right.
He is
Yeah.
working all the time. It is annoying.
So
You know?
this would be where working with an experienced teacher or a yoga therapist perhaps could be very helpful. Having a guide to help you develop a practice that's relevant and meaningful for your life. Everybody's different, and there's lots of different ways to do mind quieting practices, relaxation practices, meditation practices. But I don't think you will find many high level folks, be it in athletics, any sector, business, medicine, who don't have some kind of self-regulation practice. In martial arts transitions, meditation was an integral part of the lifestyle, right? It's not just swinging the sword or practicing the judo throw. It's quieting the mind so we can be focused. If the mind is too cluttered, we can't receive new things. We can't process new things clearly. So it takes time, patience, and the help of a teacher, ideally.
I think, I do have a little bit of that from, the therapy that I referenced earlier, but it's also, that's what the gym is for me. So like if I'm in there and you're texting me, that's why if you text me in the middle of the day, I'm not responding to you because I'm going backwards on a treadmill. I'm doing squats. I'm trying to heal my knee. I'm focused on my bench press or I'm trying to go up in weight or something. And I'm always thinking about just being there. That is the only thing that's why I kind of went a little loopy around COVID because I didn't have my mechanism, right? Like that's kind of my mechanism. And I think what I learned was that can't be the only mechanism, right? Like that can't be the only thing that gets me into a place where I'm relaxed and focused. And one of the things that we talked about, I keep teasing this podcast that isn't out yet, but hopefully you can listen to it is, your business is called Flow State. And you kind of asked me how I get into flow state. And my answer, I think kind of surprised you because I was like, I don't have that really. I have flashes. And that has a lot to do with my process as like a creative person. But I do write in flashes and sometimes that's, the well is empty, right? Like the battery's drained. And the way that it gets back is I have to go do something else. I have to pull back from whatever I'm doing and then go back. And if I still don't have it, then I outline it. Then I take another break. Like a lot of I don't know if I could ever work a 9 to 5 anymore because my processes don't allow me to do that necessarily. I have to have this midday break. I have to have all these other things in place for me to be at my optimal ability to do things, and most of the time doing things is writing or editing. So, yeah, I just think it's super interesting that you have this whole practice that you're building. Can you talk a little bit about how you work with group clients and then individual clients before we wrap up?
Yeah. So yoga therapy is, and I would say an emerging um, modality or field, and it is different than yoga classes. I want to be clear that the yoga
Right.
classes are fantastic. Everybody should try, and it's a great entry point for learning a little bit about yoga, about movement, breathing, connecting with other people. It's great to do that. Yoga therapy is different because it's done on a one-on-one basis. So the individual is getting direct observation and feedback and collaboration with the yoga therapist about designing a personal practice that is effective for that individual and their life. Your practice is going to look different than somebody else's. Um, David, the producer, he's going to have a different practice than you are. You have different lives, different spiritual belief systems, different dispositions, different, um, you know, habits and everything. So yeah, that's kind of where I go with clients. It's like it's an individual collaborative journey that we take together on a one-on-one basis. I've worked with high school athletes, college athletes. I've worked with adults who are competing professionally in MMA and folks who are doing 50-mile races and professional firefighters and all kinds of different people, different phases of life. But the individual process is what makes yoga therapy unique. The group work is really fun to do. I've worked with several teams, high school, college, and some businesses actually who are interested in in cultivating a more health focused culture, um, doing what you do better is a result of focusing on the process and cultivating conditions. So for you mentioned flow state, when you have these flashes, they don't just happen in a vacuum. Like you're doing something to cultivate that soil so the flash can sprout its seed, right?
Right.
So that's how I think about the yoga therapy process with a group. It's helping to, a lot of times it's speaking. I've worked with like elite wrestlers at the high school level, and like, we'll do some relaxation practice because that's what they need. Like they're training so hard for, you know, 5, 6 hours a day. They need to learn how to release tension. So again, it's really tailored to the group and the goals. But I worked with another team. This was a college lacrosse program um, who doesn't have a full-time strength conditioning staff member, let alone a strength conditioning program. So again, a lot of that work was done after practice. We would do some guided yoga and relaxation, and it was teaching these guys how to literally downshift their nervous system and down regulate. It's really hard to have optimal health if we don't provide space for that downshift and relaxation practice. So yeah, it's very personalized, it's very group tailored, but those are some things that I've been doing.
And if you're listening to this, you can check you out at flowstateyogatherapy.com. And your socials are, I assume, similar.
Social is at Flow State Yoga Therapy.
Awesome.
Yeah, please reach out. I look forward to hopefully connecting with folks and learning more about everyone's goals.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully you can go listen to other podcasts. It's a little fun. I thought it was, this is more like a lacrosse one that relates to other parts of playing it and also progressing as like a human being, which I think is cool. And when you launch your podcast, I think it's going to be a little more tailored to the latter than the former, but I really appreciate you coming on. And I want to thank you again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. I'm Kyle Devitt. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Kyle.